watching Property TV.
Hello, welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galvin, and this is the programme where you can have your property-related questions answered by our team of property experts. Joining me today are Richard Murray, CEO of Eurolink, provider of Vico estate agency software. Welcome.
Thank you.
Your second show with us.
Second show, yeah.
Good. Well,
first time with me.
Must have liked the first one.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, yeah, and I've been
He's back.
introduced to John. Looking forward to this one.
And you're still here.
I'm still here, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
That's cruel.
On your right is John Howard, property developer, author, mentor, public speaker, TV commentator.
Thank you, Stephen.
Has that increased it enough?
That's
You told me off in
in
the last show for not giving you a...
Well, you normally mention the estate agent, which I say you don't need to mention.
Well,
but
that's why I
fine.
haven't mentioned it.
No, that's
but,
good. Thank you.
Anyway, we know you own a chain of estate agencies. Yep. How's that? Okay, let's move on to the questions. And I think, John, you're going to go first. Now, we have touched on this subject in a different programme, but I suppose it's a topical question because of the budget that we've recently had, and it's with regard to housing targets.
Yes.
Now, with a new housing target of 180,000 stated in the budget, do the panel think this is an achievable target given the 11.5 billion of funding that's being made available? The policy exchange gave a required figure of 15 billion per year to build the 150,000 homes that were given in earlier proposals and also proposed by the Labour Party. Now, what this does, it separates Labour and Conservative in terms of contribution per unit. On the Conservative figures, you're looking at £63,000 per unit, and on the Labour calculations, you're looking at 100,000.
Well, Labour never been very good at figures, have they?
Well,
so
I thought you might say that.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to do here is we're given all these figures. Some of these figures have been announced before and are brought back in a budget for headlines.
So shall I pull it all together for you?
Pull it all together, and let's understand what the government are actually trying to do and where the money's coming from.
Okay. The first thing is this: they need 500,000 new homes a year. They're targeting 300,000 new homes. These are private homes. At the moment, they're achieving about 220,000, 230,000 a year. That's the first thing. The 180,000 homes are for social homes. So that's a different target, a different budget, a different target. And what you're saying, or what the Labour are saying, well, we're going to put 100,000 a piece into the properties. What the Conservatives are saying, we're going to put in 60,000 a piece because it's a subsidy. Okay. So you're going to get the whole thing's a bit of a joke because 180,000 homes are going to be funded by the government one way or the other.
Well, where does the other 40%? Where's the other 40% come from?
Okay, so housing associations can get grants from the government. They subsidise that grant with loans now from banks. So which they never used to be able to do, but they can now. So that's when, say a house is 150,000 to build, they're putting in 60. The private funder is putting in the balance. Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
So the idea is that actually more will be built because they're spreading the money thinner, if you like. And of course, these housing associations, what really annoys me, Richard, when you're against these housing associations, who now think they're property developers, by the way, they're bidding on the basis of their interest they pay to the bank is probably 1.5%. Ours might be 6.5%. Sometimes it's 3%, depending how much we borrow. So that is not really a fair playing field at all. But that's the difference.
Does a housing association have any what are loosely called sort of 106 type obligations when they develop?
Well, that's a very good point, because if they're building social housing, then they don't have that responsibility, no, because it's already been catered for within what they're doing.
Well, that's the number of social houses.
Yes.
I'm talking about sort of 106 conditions, providing a school nearby, providing...
No. All that basically goes on most occasions. So again, you're really up against it.
You're not on a level playing field.
No, and also on top of that, you've got local authorities now buying properties to develop them themselves. Local authorities, I thought Thatcher got rid of all them, but that idea, but that's all coming back now. You've got this government are allowing housing local authorities to purchase properties or develop properties. Now, a council are not best placed to develop properties, let's be honest. But what they are doing, they're competing against developers, which cannot, and it's not a level playing field. So I don't think that's right.
Okay. And is there any merit in the argument or criticism that developers are sitting on land waiting for prices to go up before they develop?
Do you know what? I hear this all the time. And the very big house builders, the 10 big house builders, this is the monopoly that the government are trying to break. Because in the 1970s, small builders like ourselves and developers produced 70% of the houses. Now it's the other way around. Now the 10 major house builders produce 65% of the houses, and they're trying to break that monopoly because those house builders will control the market. So they won't build too many if the market's going to go down and all the rest of it. So they on the whole, they can't afford to sit on land for too long. There is some of that going on, but not a lot of it. Not a lot of it.
All right, fine. Thank you very much, John. Richard, your first question. I read a lot about Proptech in the property press and on the internet. Can the panel explain how this tech is changing or could improve estate agency and property management practices? There, that'll keep you going for a minute or two.
Sure, yeah. Big question. Look, property technology or Proptech, it can vastly increase efficiencies in agency. Sure. It can help with compliance. It can help with just the day-to-day repetitive business processes. You can automate things. You can allow, we were talking earlier, John, about allowing those estate agency staff to do what you want them to do. Do deals. Yeah, let's get deals over the line. Let's build our pipeline. Let's find new landlords. Yeah. It's the sort of thing where the problem with Proptech, in my opinion, is a lot of the time we're trying to solve problems that don't necessarily exist, or certainly aren't as important.
Almost trying too hard, really.
A little bit, or trying to forecast what problems are going to be. And again, as John would know, as an agent, you know what you do best, and we exist to complement that. We don't exist to replace that. I mean, we've talked a lot about the onliners and look at estate agency surviving the high street. I mean, that says a hell of a lot about the public, no matter what they say about estate agents. What the public actually do think deep down is they trust estate agents, what I call full service agents, to manage probably the largest transaction any of us will oversee in our lives.
I do wonder how you have the sort of larger typical online only agents, and we won't mention any names, but I think we can all imagine a sort of fairly colourful agency here. I wonder how they cope with compliance compared with a physical agent.
Well, again, they will use technology. I don't think there's a huge difference.
It must be only technology.
Yeah, only technology, but there's not a huge difference. I think that the online market, they were expecting to take about 50%. That was the
boast.
That was the boast. But I was imagining that was in the pitch deck as well to the investors.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. Their shares have gone like.
And I think in reality, and again, it's I don't get anything out of seeing someone's business fail. No. I thought 25% would have been a really punchy estimate. But to get to sort of that 6%, and I think it's stalled at about 6%,
I think
John?
It's about 5-6%.
It is now, yeah, back down to 5 something. I mean, that's obviously that
they've done their money.
Well, the investors have certainly, and that's sad. But the difference is, from a tech perspective, no matter what size of agency you have or what service levels you offer, compliance is, it's crucial. It's absolutely crucial. And Proptech can help with that. Yeah. Proptech can help.
DocSign and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's fantastic how it's all changed. How it's legal, I'm not sure, by the way, Richard.
Well, that's another one for another day. But actually, that is the consumer experience that I think, as in the Proptech world, that's where we need to focus now more. We've worked very hard over decades now on making sure that compliance, efficiencies, automation, client accounting, client monies
And you
are
guys,
protected.
and you guys are seriously clever. I mean, the stuff that you do now for our agencies and stuff is amazing. I mean, it is really, really clever.
Actually, thinking about it, I mean, the one thing that Proptech can do, it can put everybody on a pretty level playing field, can't it?
Find deals for people.
It can help. It can certainly help. But yeah, as I've said previously, it's as important to an independent single office agency as it is to a large corporate to get their compliance right.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all we've got time for in this half of the show. So join me again after the break.
You are watching Property TV. You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Questions. I'm joined by John Howard and Richard Murray. Welcome back, guys. And we'll move straight on, John, with your second question. With government grants being withdrawn for the fitment of solar panels, do the panel think that this is a signal that they're not really worth the capital cost in relation to the benefits? I'm keen to make what green improvements I can to my home, but I always seem to end up thinking that the cost to reward benefits don't really stack up, even for the environment. Now, I know you're a responsible developer.
Thank you.
It's not often I pay you a compliment, is it? But you're a responsible developer.
Yes.
You're in the same boat as actually any individual, aren't you, when you're doing a development? So what's your view on this?
Well, first of all, if I said to you, and I won't say who it is, obviously, I have a friend who had a turnover of 20 million a year. 10 million a year was on solar panels. That's until the grant was cut. His turnover now is 12 million a year. So what does that tell you? So the problem with these grants is that, to start with, they work relatively well. After a year or two, all the sharp business people out there work out that actually we can whack the price up and still have but incorporate the grant, and that's what happens. And then the government get to a point where, hang on, and they're always a bit slow on the uptake, admittedly, but they get to the point where they go, hang on a minute, we're having our leg lifted here. It should be a lot less because there's a grant, but it isn't. So they close down the grant. So actually, these people are so greedy in the end, and my friend's fairly greedy, that they do themselves a disservice in the end. So that's what happens. It's a shame, really, because I mean, solar panel now, I'm told, and Richard, more trendy and younger than us, probably knows more, but I'm told you don't even need sunlight now for these solar panels. So it's so clever, isn't it, what they do?
Do you remember the Green Deal?
Yes.
About a decade ago.
Yes.
So we provided data to help some of the big energy companies, EPC data, because that was the criteria, if you remember.
Yeah.
So I hope my stats serve me well here, but I think in the end, that whole campaign, there was around 300,000 applications, and I think there was a 0.6% success rate. So first of all, that's a very small number of applications on a scheme that was put together to help people basically produce a more sustainable home.
All those years ago.
All those years ago. So I just think the whole thing needs a complete overhaul, because if you look at experience, tells us these schemes are not working. No. This scheme hasn't worked unless there's been the grants. It
is the same with insulation, isn't it? It's the same sort of thing. We've been offered all sorts of incentives in the past, but the take-up is very...
The take-up is very low.
I mean, I suppose it begs the question. I mean, we've got a situation here in Canary Wharf, which was the Docklands regeneration area, where 25 years ago, you were given permission to build pretty well whatever you wanted without planning, as long as it met the building specs. But what we're finding now, and it's on the questionnaire as some of the lenders' forms, has your building got a more than 25-year life? Because we're pulling down buildings here that are less than 25 years old and replacing them. Hold on, John.
Yeah.
But the real point is, we're pulling these down. Is it cheaper to pull down and regenerate with new building, or are we wasting our money trying to get people to bring up to spec, which is sometimes a pretty impossible task with older buildings?
Well, I'm buying quite a lot of properties off housing associations at the moment because they've got a rating of E, and they can't rent them.
Can't let them. Yeah.
And to get them up to C is too expensive for them. For us, it works for us to buy these buildings. But for them, most of these housing associations now are really house builders. They just want new build. They don't want anything older. So that works quite well for us. And I would say that any building has to have a 60-year life on it when it's built from the BRE, the Buildings Research Establishment, in order to get a mortgage and funding. So you shouldn't be knocking anything down that's 25 years old. That's criminal, nearly.
Well, I mean, it's just factual here. You know, 25 years ago, they built 20, 25 stories, thought that was great. We're currently on 70 stories.
Yeah, but that's slightly different because they're doing that for a different reason.
Well, I know, but
it's not being done because the buildings.
I know, but it's the principle
yeah.
of taking that plot of land and turning it into something that is of today rather than of 25 years ago.
Yeah, well, that's redevelopment, isn't it?
And I just worry, you know, perhaps in the Midlands, the north of England, where, you know, the streets and streets of terraced houses were there, whether it is actually economical or viable.
Well, it's all about, as you know, we all know, it's all about what the land value is worth. And of course, in these poor areas, it's not worthwhile doing. You can't make it work. If you live in multi-millionaires row like you do, and so on, then of course, you know, it works, doesn't it?
I'm only squatting.
Yeah, well, we know that's not true.
Right. Okay. So the answer to that is really what? Are these green measures good value?
Well, I think they're good value to start with, but I think people take advantage of them. These companies take advantage of them and make them uneconomical. That's the problem.
I mean, I do think this is a sort of modern technology. I think these smart meters are a terrific idea because it actually lets people see what they're using when they're using it.
Yeah, it's depressing.
But yeah, it is depressing. But at least it gives people that option of choice, doesn't it? You know, I'll turn something down, or it does matter if you just knock the few degrees off the achievable temperature. It does make a difference. And I mean, I think that sort of thing is great. But I do worry about the practicality and the reality of being able to persuade people to rip their houses apart and do all sorts of innovative things just to make them green. I just don't think it's going to work.
It's retrofitting, the sustainability,
and it's always expensive.
Very expensive,
well,
yeah.
You know,
so where's the onus then on developers? I mean, there's some great developers doing some unbelievable schemes, certainly in the north of England, companies like Situ, building carbon neutral homes without the requirement to do so. And they're using all sorts of technology within their homes. And actually, you go to their sites, and they actually look like terraced homes. Some of them, it like almost a throwback to where we were as communities. And they want owner occupier. They want to build communities. So there's companies like that who are leading the way, let's say. But I think there's a long way to go.
Long way to go.
I think the architects are doing a great job. I have a friend who's doing a development in Matlock, and they've taken an old quarry site.
I know it.
And they've done an amazing job.
Amazing job.
It's taken a lot of time. You know, super things they've done. You know, they've not sort of demonised cars. What they've said is, I'll tell you what, we're going to put the cars semi-underground, out of the way, off the streets, which cuts the street size down. And so they've accepted what we've got.
That's a very special development, that is, at Matlock.
Yeah. Took him 20 years to get the consent.
Yeah, not surprised. Well, that's a local authority for you, isn't it?
It is indeed. Okay, great. Thank you, John. Richard, your last question of the day. I have a buy-to-let business and I'm keen to improve the efficiency of my operation. Can the panel advise on how to best select an appropriate software company to provide a good package?
I would say any software procurement project, whether it's property or otherwise, define your objectives. Make sure that you know what you're looking to achieve. What are you trying to achieve? You want to scale up? Do you want to be more efficient? Do you want to improve your consumer experience that we were talking about earlier? Again, it's that's the first thing. Make sure you really sort of understand what your objectives are. Next thing I would say is make sure all the stakeholders are involved. You know, early buy-in is good. Heads of department, make sure if you can get early buy-in from people, a project will run much smoother.
Yeah.
Ask the software companies to talk to you first online. Have a meeting in the old-fashioned way. Have a consultation day. Make sure the provider understands what your requirements are.
Good
Don't
point.
just sit in front of a generic demo. And believe me, I've sat in a lot of them.
I was going to say, I mean, I've seen some of these super demos, and you think, well, this is amazing, and you go away and you think, yeah, but how do I integrate that into my business? Who's going to help me? Are they going to be there if I don't know what to do, or I get in a mess?
In my case, it needs to be very simple to run as well.
Absolutely,
me
yeah.
I'm being funny because
Yeah.
I'm no tech.
Well, this is what's called UI, user interface. That's what it's all about now. Gamification.
UI.
Gamification, John, that's a good one to drop in as well. No, you want to.
We're learning here, aren't we?
We are. It's all new world to us.
It's just what you're saying. It's making it sure it's a user-friendly system. The UI is good. And gamification, making sure you want to go back to use it. You want users going back to it, not creating 10 Excel spreadsheets, because that doesn't help your business.
Well, Richard, how many times have we been in business and you say to people, well, how much of that system are you using? Oh, I'm only using about 10% of it because I can't understand the rest, or I can't. And that's a waste of time. And it might be a great system, but if you people won't use it, or they're nervous to use it, that's a problem.
But that's part of the process then, so the procurement process. Make sure that, and again, if you're having these demos, don't have 5 in a day. They all blend into one.
Good point. Good advice.
Invest in it. Invest in some time. Do one a day for 5 days.
Yeah.
I know that's a big commitment, but one a day, questionnaire, point system based on your requirements. Each day, key stakeholders involved. You will find the right software house.
I think it's not automatically a simple choice to make, because I know we looked at our website, and I'm not particularly bright at these sort of things, but I went online, I approached a number of companies and gave them a brief of what we wanted, and actually after 5 I came to the conclusion ours was better than they were offering anyway. So it's not an automatic choice to have to go that particular way. But one of the interesting points you raised there was scalability, really. How do you judge whether, this questioner's got a buy-to-let portfolio, so let's say for argument's sake he's got 10 properties. If he did want to scale that to 50, how do you kind of ensure that your software is capable of being scaled up, and that you're not going to get halfway through and somebody says, that's no good for you?
Well, it sort of becomes out of date.
Yeah, but I would say, again, it's part of the procurement process. Look at who they're dealing with.
Because I don't think you'd like to deal with us two, would he?
No.
I think he'd have his work cut out, wouldn't he?
I just be tearing your hair out by the end of the day.
But look, and I think you made a really good point there. Look, if you're not going to improve what you've got, don't
What's the
point.
No,
and
exactly.
I shouldn't be saying that, should I? But that's the reality. Don't change. But again, if you invest time in researching as well, who do these companies work with? In your case, what websites do they provide? In terms of scalability, who do they work with? Who do they work with who is far more scalable than we'd ever want to get to? Get some reference sites, talk to those reference sites.
Good idea.
Again, it's just, I think across those 5 or 6 steps, if you tick each one of those boxes, the most important and final one, though, I must say, is invest the time yourselves. There's no magic fairy dust in implementing a new software. It's hard. It's a difficult process. You've got data migration to consider. Invest time yourselves. Don't expect it just to happen by accident.
Okay. Well, to save us looking too hard for the fairy dust, we'll draw a line onto today's programme. So thank you both very much for coming in, John Howard and Richard. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks a lot.
Look forward to seeing you next time.
Great.
If you do have a question for our panel, do get in touch with us via the website, propertytv.uk. Look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Stephen Galpin. Thanks for watching.